Hi, welcome to Fresh Faces New Ideas. My name is David, and if you like the channel and you want to support what I do, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. Now, I was gone for a week, so there was a lot that happened. There was stuff that I couldn't make videos of. So I'm going to briefly go over a couple different things. There's a congressperson who's defending no voting on Sunday. There is Sidney Powell's back in the news, and it's worth discussing, which is Tucker Carlson is outright advocating for fascism instead of hinting at it, and Lord Bobert says incredibly stupid things. So let's get started here, shall we? Okay, so this is Sydney Hyde Smith, and she's defending why, because originally the Georgia bill did not allow for Sunday voting. That was the original purpose of the bill. It did not allow that. So what she's arguing is why it's a good thing that we should have Sunday voting.
Very much for
Thank
that.
you.
Senator Schumer's question was, he was wondering why on Sundays Georgia would not participate in an electoral process of gathering signatures of registration and things on Sunday. And I would just like to respond to that. Georgia's a southern state just like Mississippi. I cannot speak for Georgia, but I can speak for Mississippi on why we would never do that on a Sunday or hold an election on a Sunday. You know, this is our currency. This is a dollar bill. This says the United States of America, in God we trust. Etched in stone in the U.S. Senate chamber is in God we trust. When you swore in all of these witnesses, the last thing you said to them in your instructions was, "So help you God." In God's word in Exodus 20:18, it says, "Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy."
This is one of my single biggest gripes with Republicans. It's this holier than thou Christianity belief that we are a Catholic nation. We are built and must preserve us as a Catholic nation. Let's be very clear. The United States of America does not have a single religion. It is not a theocracy. We don't have one religion that rules over all. You're allowed to practice whatever religion you want. You want to be a Satanist, as long as you are not harming other people, you can practice whatever religion, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Catholic, whether you're agnostic, whether you're a Satanist. Nobody cares. Well, that's not true. People care. But you're allowed to do that. And here is my issue with what she's just said there. Because God said you have to rest on the Sabbath, in my religion, we cannot do things on Sunday. So I would like to assume that at no point in her life has she done any of the things that are required for being against rest on a Sunday. I also imagine she's never eaten shellfish or things like that, or worn clothing with mixed cloth. This is such holier than thou garbage. And this is part of why for so long we did not have gay marriage, because these people would argue that Jesus said no. I don't care. Sad day for you, and sucks to be you, that your religion says I can dominate other people. That's not how it works in this country. Just because your religion and whatever magical text you want to believe in says that I don't believe this thing, that's cool. You can act on it in your life, in your religion. It does not affect other people. When you attempt to do things like push other people into your religion, or impose your religion on other people, you're doing something that's not allowed in America. And this is the same thing you argue against when you villainize Sharia law. So no, everything she said here is anti-American on its face. I don't care what religion you are. You can practice whatever you want. As soon as you attempt to use that religion to change the way laws are worked, is different than you doing it in your own religion. This is the same argument I have against anti-abortion people. I don't care that every single thing is God's creation. You're allowed to have your religion. And if you don't want to have an abortion, don't have an abortion. But you do not get to decide, because of your religion, that other people who should and believe that they can have access to abortion, or that little girl who got raped should not have access to an abortion because she's killing God's creature. Is she not God's creature? This whole thing about what what God would allow. It just goes in the face of republicanism. They're against helping the poor. They're against helping the needy. They're just against helping people. So this is just so ridiculous. Anytime someone uses God as an excuse to push some type of law, they're anti-American. It's as simple as that. We are not a theocracy. We are not one of those countries that argue about Sharia law. We do not allow that here. If you push a law and your reason is because God, because Allah, because Jesus, because whatever, because Yahweh, what the Jews call it, you're not arguing in an American way. You're arguing in a religious context that does not fit with the way this country was designed. So yes, it says in God we trust on the money. That was put there in the 60s. It's a phrase, but it does not mean in God you can legislate. That's not how this works. Okay? So now that I've had my spiel on religion, and this is something I will happily argue with people whenever, let's go on to more Republicans talking about lying. Here's Sidney Powell. For those of you who don't remember, Sidney Powell was the face of Republican arguments that the election was rigged. Sidney Powell released the Kraken, is her argument. Is this actually okay? It's a full one. I hadn't looked at it. I just needed to get the headline. Now, Sidney Powell is being sued by Dominion, and for $1.3 billion. Right? Is that? I don't know what it says. Anyway, the argument she made is in court. This is her in court argument, and you're going to find this familiar because I've covered this a couple times. Her argument is that no reasonable person could believe the things that she was saying was the truth. Her defense argument is, I was lying to you the entire time. All the money you spent to give to the defense fund about this was lies. Everything I have said to this point was a lie. And you know what? I'm not a lawyer. I've spoken to lawyers about this. My view of this is that is a rational defense. Let's be clear about what the thing she was saying is. She was saying that Dominion voting was overturning the election because it was built and operated by Hugo Chavez, who died 7 years ago, in order to flip this election. And she argued that there were specific cases, there were specific counties in Georgia where she could prove that the voting was flipped, except Trump won that county. This gets crazier. So first off, this is now the second Republican figurehead. Tucker Carlson has argued this in court, and I imagine Fox News has also been sued by Dominion, will argue this in court as well, that no reasonable person can believe the things that I say. You come to my show with a healthy bit of skepticism, is Tucker Carlson. Sidney Powell is no reasonable person can believe me because I was lying. That's both of them are saying our constituents are stupid. We could just lie to them. They will believe whatever they want. And as soon as we face consequence, hey man, it's not our fault that you're all dumb. We're just going to keep lying to you, and they're just going to keep believing us because that's the way it is. So that's where she stands. Now, this is particularly scary because I don't remember how many of you remember this article. So this came out. This is an Axios article. This came out February 2nd. So this was a little bit after the inauguration. I cannot believe this was a real thing that happened. So in this meeting, her and Giuliani and Michael Flynn and the Overstock CEO, they all went to Trump, and they had this like long 4-hour meeting, and a whole bunch of Trump advisors and a whole bunch of Trump lawyers had to come in to deal with this. And basically what their argument is you have to allow us to have put me as a special prosecutor, a special counsel, so I can look into all of this and prove all this data. And this is where that quote I was talking about, that one county that got flipped. Their ultimate argument in this was they should push for martial law based on the things that she was saying. Her and Flynn were pushing for this. They were pushing for martial law on a thing they just admitted just a couple days ago was a lie. She was advocating for the government, for the federal government, to overturn the election based on a lie that she knew was a lie. They knew this was a lie. And her advocation was, we have to overthrow the government. That you have to allow us to overturn this election. We know that we're lying. Everyone in that room knows we're lying. And even the lawyers in there are like, they're dumbfounded. I'm linking this piece into the video because it is worth reading, and it is there are not words to describe the craziness that goes on in this meeting. But it is, to be very clear, this woman who just argued that her legal argument is you cannot believe the things that I was saying because if you believe them, you're not a reasonable person, was talking to the President of the United States, advocating for martial law in order to give her the power to look around and try to find these voting claims that she believes, and she had a fire hose. Maybe she wasn't fire hose of evidence. She had stacks that she could indisputably claim that overturned the election. That's where we were. When this article was written in the second, but it came out before, but this meeting happened before then while Trump was still president. That's what was happening. That's why these people are so dangerous, because they're just going to lie to you. There's no basis for the voter fraud. There's no basis for these Republican bills that they're pushing up. I just saw this on Twitter right now. Florida is now considering to ban people from making it a crime to give people food and water on voting lines because reasons. I mean, Georgia already did it. I had a video about that. I'll link that in the description as well. So anyway, it's worth noting that this is what they were arguing about. And now this goes into Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker Carlson is going to have this guy on. I have no idea who this is. But they're about to have a nice little conversation about fascism.
I think you make a really solid point about the sadness and the powerlessness that people feel in the face of this. And at some point, people are going to say, why should I follow the rules? Why should I be a good citizen if they don't have to follow the rules? I mean, things kind of break down at some point, don't they?
Well, they will break down. They are breaking down, Tucker. I've said this before, and I'm telling you, I'm worried that I'm right. The right is going to pick a fascist within 10 to 20 years because they're not going to be the only ones on the outs. There's 60, 70 million of us. We're not a tiny minority. And if we're going to be all treated like criminals and all subject to every single law while Antifa, Black Lives Matter guys go free and Hunter Biden goes free, then the right's going to take drastic measures. And it's not about Hunter Biden and his drug use. Nobody cares that guy was bumping booger sugar lines off European hookers on the weekend. It's about justice that he's never held accountable for, and none of the Bidens are. But you would be, Tucker, and so would I.
That's so well put, and you're absolutely right. We're moving toward actual extremism because they're undermining the system that kept extremism at bay. And I don't.
So in this clip, for those of you who don't understand what just happened, is Tucker Carlson and this guy are advocating for, hey man, look, the left made us fascist. Them being anti-fascist and asking for civil rights, that we're fascism now. That's how it's going to be. Now, let's be clear. There are already people in the Republican Party who would push for fascism, and this is like really mind blowing because I know I'm a little late to the party on having seen the second season of The Boys. There is a character in The Boys who is an actual Nazi. And there is a clip of her and Homelander, who's one of the other main characters, making a speech about scapegoating whole people. And if you take out the parts that have to do with the actual show about the Compound V, you can almost find word for word that speeches or parts of it on Fox News. She's an actual Nazi in the character. And it comes out of Fox News. Look, John Oliver did a piece about Tucker Carlson, just about how he overtly and subtly talks to white supremacists and how they love him. This is such a terrible, crazy argument. Their argument is because Antifa, which is not an organization and has a kill count of 1, and that guy got lit up. That guy got shot, and Trump bragged about killing that guy. Because they were not held accountable, and because Black Lives Matter was not held accountable for the small percentage. Look, let's be clear. The people who burned and looted that stuff, everybody is against that. But if you look into the data of the violence caused by Black Lives Matter, it is not offensive violence. It just isn't. Because you refuse to hold those people accountable, because you refuse to hold Hunter Biden accountable. While he's under investigation, Hunter Biden is currently under investigation. And if we're talking about using cocaine, Don Jr. is not really one to be put. You should, Hunter Biden's not the only one you should be talking about. Don Jr. looks like he's been hanging out there too. But this idea that, the Bidens are free and will never get any type of punishment. He's not going to be punished for the Burisma thing because it wasn't illegal. What he did, was it generally scummy, and it appears to be like normal corruption from who you know? Yeah, but it wasn't illegal. The Trumps, on the other hand, are facing a whole bunch of legal felonies because they do a whole bunch of illegal things. This idea that you can't hold Republicans accountable, and because if you do, you have to hold the left accountable, is not an equivalent. Let us be very clear. If Black Lives Matter or Antifa, and it's worth mentioning every single time they complain about Antifa, and this is especially relevant to this clip, Antifa is anti-fascist. So if you're anti-Antifa, you are a fascist. That's really simple. And it's clear. They'd say, hey, look, they have anti-fascists, so now we got to go fascism. That's just the way it is. So, look, let's be clear. There is no equivalent to Antifa and what happened on January 6th. There is no equivalent to Black Lives Matter and what happened on January 6th. The people say, oh, there's all this violence that comes out. Right-wing extremists caused almost every single terrorism attack in 2019. The only argument they ever point to about prior to all this complaining about Antifa stuff is the Steve Scalise shooting is their only argument for left-wing violence. The Steve Scalise shooting happened in 2017. Since then, we have seen multiple shootings because of Donald Trump's rhetoric. Actually, quoting Donald Trump's rhetoric, we have seen a guy send multiple pipe bombs to Donald Trump's enemies. We have seen them invade the Capitol and attempt to murder not just his vice president, but any Republican they could any Democrat, Republican they could get their hands on. We have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene recently made a statement saying that she is the most persecuted member of the House. I don't know if you know who Ilhan Omar is, and that's a legitimate question about whether she knows who Ilhan Omar is. But Ilhan Omar, the death threats that she gets, and this is well documented, that she is the most death threats of any congressperson because she is a Muslim woman. So that's what they go after. So let us be very clear what this statement is. Their argument is, if you hold us accountable, we're going to have to just go to fascism. Just because it's your fault. If you hold us accountable, we're going to be okay with fascism. This is bonkers. And look, people like Tucker Carlson, people like Tom Cotton, pushing fascism type ideas. So I can't look. A lot of what's happened under Trump is that they've said the quiet part out loud. This is as overt as you can get it. They're like, look, we're just going to go fascist. They've just given up on democracy. It's just they literally are giving up on democracy here. Now, let's end this with one of the dumber things. So this is Lauren Boebert. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a Colorado congressman from Boulder, I believe, is actually where her district is. I don't remember where exactly she is. Anyway, she's from. So this picture is especially relevant. Now, Laura Boebert's whole thing is she's diet version of Marjorie Taylor Greene, except you replace all the crazy QAnon, like the extra conspiracy theories, with guns. And that's her whole representation. She's guns. That's it. That's all she does. So on the left, we see a picture of Lauren Boebert at one of the other, at one of her either committee meetings or an interview. Look at this background. There is a shotgun behind her. There's multiple guns. Oh, I didn't even see that handgun. First time I've seen this. All this. Now let's be clear. This is very clearly staged because it does not look like an actual thing that people set up. She wants to make it very clear she has guns. And then the picture on the right is a more recent interview that happened after Boulder. So in these two pictures, we can see that she's now ashamed of the thing that she did. And we will have a real-time representation, as long as they're doing Zoom-in meetings, of how much Laura Boebert thinks it's okay to mourn these people before she goes back to picking up her guns. Okay? Very clear with that. Now, let's go with this interview that she had on Newsmax, because Newsmax is like the crazy fox.
But you yourself are from Colorado. This is your state. You're saying, look, all what you're talking about is already implemented in this state. Is that true? Do you have some of the...
So one of the other things is this particular area in Boulder, They just got rid of their ban for AR weapons. That just happened right before this shooting. The NRA was bragging about it. If they hadn't, maybe that guy wouldn't have been able to buy a weapon and shoot these people.
Toughest gun laws in your state.
Colorado does have some of the most strictest gun laws. We have just about everything that Democrats are wanting to push nationally. And unfortunately, our state is showing that these do not work.
Okay, so here's the other thing. This is worth mentioning every single time they talk about gun control. When you talk about a specific city or a specific state, you have to understand in the broader concept of the country is we are not individually walled off states. So if your state does not have strict gun control, my state does, you can purchase whatever you need in that state and come into my state and shoot people up. It doesn't matter what my laws are because you got it from somewhere else. That's why it's pushed for national things, because if it's national, it's overall. So for states, and this is something Mitch kind of argued about saying the filibuster, universal concealed carry. There have been pushes to say that whatever the least strict gun registration is, that's whatever the law is. And that's the difference. So when you argue, oh, well, look at Chicago, it's got so much gun violence, it has strict gun control. Yeah, but what about the surrounding area? There's more to context than that.
Chicago is showing that gun laws do not work. And every time something like this happens, there's more knee-jerk reactions to legislate law-abiding citizens.
This is not knee-jerk. Let us be clear. This was knee-jerk after Columbine. This was clarified after Sandy Hook. This was further solidified after Parkland. This should have been a no-brainer slam dunk after Vegas, the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. This should have been dealt with before we had more mass shootings in 2019 than we did days in the year. This is not a knee-jerk reaction. We've been arguing this for my entire lifetime. Sandy Hook wasn't that long ago. I think it was 2013. Nothing has really changed. In fact, it's gotten worse. We have more guns than ever. So this idea that more guns will stop people from committing mass murders is not true.
And restrict them from being able to defend themselves. You know, Officer Talley is a hero. He went, while everyone else was running out of King Soopers in Boulder, Colorado, he ran in and faced the attacker head on. And, you know, I wish that there were more people there to back him. If that place wasn't such a soft target, perhaps there would have been more law-abiding.
Look, I hate this argument to a soft target. The fact that your argument is more guns and solidify, like after Sandy Hook, there was the push for school buildings to build more security around, like having walls that you can hide behind. For sure, that should not be the answer. We should not have to pretend every day like we're in a war zone. There is no comparable nation to the gun violence that we perceive, except for places in the middle of civil war. And that's not even fair to them because we're worse than that. So this idea that, oh, we need more guns, it just does not prove accurate because most likely the people who would have these firearms aren't trained with them. Because that's part of what the Second Amendment says, regulated militia. These people aren't well regulated. We saw that on January 6th. There's nobody who's going to be arguing more about guns than those people on January 6th. They were not well regulated, were they?
Citizens carrying who could have helped neutralize the threat that was taking place there in Boulder. Unfortunately, the common theme in Colorado with all of these tragedies that we see is defenseless victims. A law didn't protect them. They needed a way to physically protect themselves. And in America, we see more deaths by hands, fists, feet, even hammers. And, you know, are we going to start legislating that away? Are we going to be like these other countries who even ban knives? I mean, if hammers are the cause of more deaths than firearms, then maybe we need to start having background checks on hammers. I mean,
that's the argument she's making. This is the same argument that Senator Kennedy, I believe, made. That, you know, we don't legislate drunk drivers about gun control. Look, so first off, let's talk about the statistics of how stupid this is. She said, this is the direct quote, Jessica Campbell has it. If hammers are the cause of more deaths than firearms, then maybe we need to start having background checks on hammers. There is no data anywhere that you can find that will prove that there is more deaths by hammers than firearms. In fact, the closest thing was a study that said if you combined all the other deaths of fist and feet, guess stomping death, and hammers and other blunt objects, it equaled about 1,000 deaths. Just handguns was over 6,000. When you combine all type of firearms, it's almost 11,000 deaths a year. But no, you're right. We have to ban hammers. This is such a stupid straw man. It is worth mentioning over and over again that there is no comparison to us in any other country. And now look, I don't think we will ever be able to totally eliminate gun violence. But we can sure as hell make sure there's not a mass shooting every single day in this country. And the answer is not, oh, well, we need more guns, or oh, thoughts and prayers, or half measures. Because if you do a half measure and then your argument is, oh, look, the half measure didn't work, we should get rid of it. That's the argument. Let's actually try to stop these things. We used to have an assault weapons ban, and then we got rid of it. And then more assault style deaths happened. There is no look. I can't stand her. She, fortunately, in my view, is the future of the Republican Party. Kind of. It's going to be closer to Marjorie Taylor Greene and the one in the wheelchair. I forget his name right now. They're going to be the future, not this one. This one is a significant is a push because she's kind of new when she's like one of the gun nut people. But this is the problem. All right, so let's wrap this up. So what do we look over? Sidney Hyde Smith and any Republican or anyone who argues that we have to legislate based on God's will or some type of religious understanding is fundamentally not American. That's not how this country works. We don't have a religious. Our church and state are separate. You can't legislate on your religion. That's just not how this works. Sidney Powell, who was in a meeting with the President of the United States advocating for martial law in order to make sure that she can find the votes that she swore was there, has said in court, this is her defense, nothing I say is true. I'm a liar, and anyone who believes me is stupid. It is, what was the word? Anyway, Tucker Carlson, advocating for fascism. Hey, man, you're trying to hold us accountable, trying to do, you're going to get away with these things, and we're not allowed to get away with these things, even though we've done infinitely worse, and these aren't comparable, and then that even though the people we're arguing about are actually under investigation, we're just going to be fascists now. It's your fault we're fascists now. You tried to hold us accountable, so now we're fascists. Because democracy is in the way, as we attempt to overturn democracy over and over again through these laws. And then we got Laura Boebert, who we will actively see how long she thinks it's acceptable not to have guns on her screen. And her whole shtick is guns, and her argument is, even though there's no data that proves this point, we can't regulate guns because hammers and fists are more dangerous than them, and that we need more guns anyway. That's the only way we're going to stop more mass shootings. Even though we have an all-time high in guns, we have more guns than people, and we had 2019. We had more mass shootings than days in the year. We need more guns. Everyone should be armed at all times. You should be, if you're not walking into a 7-Eleven with 22 guns and an AR-15 and an RPG strapped to your back, you're a soft target. That's how it is. Everyone should be armed with an AR-15. I mean, that's their argument. It's unconscionable. Anyway, thank you for listening to this video. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter @FacesIdeas, and I will see you in the next one.